Hello, welcome at Graphic Matters. It's the second day of the festival, and my name is Thomas Daam, and I'm here at the newsroom of the project The Half Truth, and I have the pleasure to talk with the artists behind this amazing project. And can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Jeroen de Leijer. I am a comic artist, and I am one of the founders of Wobby.Club.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you?
I'm Marjolein Schalk. I'm an illustrator, and I'm also one of the founders of Wobby.Club.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Stefan de Weert, known as Steppie Lloyd Trumpstein. I'm with these guys.
Okay. So
The same.
first things first. What's Wobby.Club?
Wobby.Club is we have a magazine. We present 4 times a year, and we ask illustrators, writers, and artists to join us there. And we print it ourselves on a risograph printer, and it's 48 pages and with text, but also with drawings, illustrations, comics. And we are looking for the edges of design, comics, and art, and poetry and literature.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And it's a very. I saw some examples. It's very colorful and lots of illustrations.
Lots of illustrations, yes. And one of the important things is that we do it ourselves. So it's mainly a do-it-yourself, self-published magazine. So independent also.
Yeah. Okay, and you can buy it online, or
you can buy it online at Wobby.Club. Wobby.Club.
Perfect. Yeah. That's so perfect. Okay.
You can. If you have a subscription, we send it to you 4 times a year.
Wow.
So for 40 euros. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new artists and writers in it, so you also discover new artists, and it's a lot of fun.
So it's a mix between like renowned illustrators and artists and younger generation.
Younger generation, because we noticed some kind of a gap also for our own work, that the illustrations in a lot of magazines are more less adventurous, and we were more looking like ways to get in contact with new people, new writers, new inspiration for ourselves as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But not only that, it's also the fact that people can experiment. We have a theme for each issue, and we ask them to make new work, so they can experiment maybe with new ways of making things, but also the technique of risograph printing. A lot of people haven't been able to use that, so we print the stuff, and they find out how you can use that, and so that's also a little bit of an experiment.
Yes, it's true, and it's also riso is already like there. The technique is already long. But now it's like having kind of a revival. Can you say that?
Yeah, it's a big revival now.
Yeah.
More artists are using it now.
And it's also a way to meet each other there. So like it's not only the work, but also the people you meet. They meet each other. So it's also about new connections in a way.
Yeah. Okay. So and you also have then an evening of when you present it. Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Twice a year.
Twice a year.
Now, normally 4 times a year, but now we'll do one here.
Okay.
And another festival we did recently, a few months ago.
Okay.
Another one. So mainly we do it in Tilburg, where we come from, where we live, Tilburg. So mostly it's there, but when there's an occasion like this festival where a new issue comes up, then of course we will present it there.
Wow, great. So and here now we are here in this room. It's like the festival described it as a newsroom, and the newsroom of the Half Truth. And can you tell about the project? What's the project about, and what we all can see here? But not you can see not everything, but you can see some stuff.
The Half Truth. We invited for this project. We invited 6 writers and 6 illustrators, artists. To give their comment on one chosen subject. So we chose the subjects randomly. So we have we've chosen some subjects, and we put them in these plastic eggs. Yeah. And then we chose like the writers and the artists we also chose this way, so it was all quite randomly.
Yeah.
And then we have, for instance, a subject
How do you translate it?
Office humor. Yeah.
office humor,
Yeah.
and then we asked them to make one poster for the subject and one poster against,
Right.
so contra and for in favor of it. And so you have like two posters, and they both have to be just as strong. So we have posters about, for instance, refugees, for and against. So it's, and then it was our idea to because you have to take a stand somehow, and that you have to consider both sides of the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also because it's very difficult nowadays to have an opinion. There's so much information going on, and you hear so many points of view that you it's very difficult to be.
It's a sort of you can get empathy when you try to delve into the subject and see both sides of the same problem as this.
Yeah.
And then it's two sides of the coin. And in these times, it's all very clear cut for or against. But by this means you really have to think about it.
And it's also about that. It's almost that's also the reason why a lot of people don't take a side. So they don't take a side because it's so difficult. So they they're not. It doesn't mean they're not involved, and that is what we wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
So because they are involved, the people are involved, and they watch the news. They have an opinion, but it's so difficult to choose one side or the other.
Yeah.
It's more about the communication. Because you have like both sides, and then you communicate with each other what it means to take one side or the other.
So, but this also came forth out of like your own feeling that you were in contradiction between what should I do? What's my opinion about this, or what's my opinion about that, and how does this work together?
Perhaps it's also about the lack of. This because not the information, because you have a lot of information, but the lack of activism within yourself. So like this festival is also about to speak up and the activism, and we thought, well, how active are we ourselves, and why is it that we don't take this point in our own work, or how do we relate to this?
Yeah, but that's
more like a question than an answer.
Yeah, right. But that's a difficult thing, because I was also thinking about that. Is it in my work, for example? That's really hard to figure out if you when you have an opinion, or are you gonna act to that?
Yeah.
Are you gonna do something?
Yeah, that's point two. So point one is what is my opinion, and on what do I base my opinion, and how do I? And this is more interesting. Well, that's what our opinion, more or less. So, how do we communicate with each other about pro and against, and how we? I think that is an interesting theme nowadays.
Yeah, and is there? Because you said before, is there you use the poster or pamphlet as the way to communicate? And is that also the reason why you took this, how do you say that? Form, like form as opposed as the protest, the form to protest, to speak up.
Yeah, I think it comes from the technique itself.
Yeah, risoprinting has a history of. It's a quick way to.
You can do it yourself.
Yeah, so that's why it was used in earlier times. So I think it went back to the
70s.
But
they called it the Mimeo Revolution. That's originally,
I think it's also about if you, for instance, if you post your opinion on social media, then you have your own bubble That and
Right.
of course, and they agree with you, of course.
Mm.
But if you have like a handout and you give it to someone on the street or you leave it in the train, then you have more chance that people who are not, who don't agree with your opinion, will get in contact with this opinion. So it was also about that you go back to the analog way of distributing your own opinion and getting in contact with people this way.
Yeah, and it's also what Liz McQuiston told during the opening of the festival, that like printing or silkscreen printing is like untraceable, like you don't leave a trace. So if you really want to be an activist or something and there is a need of being anonymous, then printing is the best way to to promote the thing, the standpoint that you want to tell out.
And in this way you have like two opinions at the same time. So it's also about a chaotic way to set your mind in motion.
Yeah.
So that was our thing, like the activism as to activate yourself, to
stimulate the
to
whole process.
Yeah. And we see here like the table full of pens and paper and glue and scissors. And
we're not glue sniffers. This is for making
collages. And on the wall we see. Or maybe I'm too quick. So on the table is like all the things. So what's happening here? Because you are a newsroom, you invite guests or visitors from the
to partake
festival.
in the same process, basically, to invite them and to undergo the process to take a random subject and start with the machine and with our help to make their own pamphlets, basically. And we started this afternoon, and it was right away we got very nice results.
Yeah.
And talking about the process, there were to get into that a bit, there were people who were really struggling with it, and because some are maybe a bit far from your bed, as they say in Holland, and then you talk about it amongst everybody, and then something will come out of it, and it's very positive and stimulating in the end. And so I think that's that it works.
Yeah.
On a basic level.
It's also like visual. Like because some are quite abstract and they think in a visual way, so it's not completely comprehensible what the message says. So it's also about the aesthetics of the risograph print. So you can like a poster, and then when you like it, you start thinking about the message, perhaps. So that's also a bit like what we did with the invitations we did for the 12 artists. So it's more like the posters are strong and visual, and then you start reading what the message says. So it's more like the other way around, that the message almost comes after the image, and that is, I think that is an interesting way.
Yeah, and something that also popped up my mind is that it's also like when people participate in your project, they also have to come out of their comfort zone.
A bit, yeah.
Because someone said I already had a slogan, but that's not quite what the meaning is. You can't choose, and you pick randomly, and then you have to
come up with
what's the pro and what's the
It's a bit like what they do and nowadays. They ask people for their opinion, so you have to come up with an opinion right away. So what's your opinion about this? And when you say, well, I don't know yet, then you will not be broadcasted. But in this way, you can have two opinions. You come up with both opinions, and then it also forces you that other people to think, well, okay, perhaps this or that, or I don't know yet. So I think the last thing is always a good thing, that you don't know it yet, because then all possibilities are still open in a way.
Exactly. So you are completely open-minded. You go into this thing.
And then you come up with something, and it is. Well, it's also just fun
and surprise yourself.
And surprising.
Yeah, surprise yourself. So speaking about surprising, did one of the examples or the examples, but results are surprising for you, like visually or content-wise?
Yeah.
Because I see like it's on internet dating, pro and cons. I don't know this topic, but I think it's Tinder or something.
Tinder, right.
Tinder is the night.
And also about euthanasia or bio-industry.
Right.
Like, and some people have, because they've chosen something and then, well, they have to
struggle a bit with it.
Struggle a bit, but then they also have to think in two colors and make a pamphlet out.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that is a nice outcome for.
Yeah.
What
Definitely.
Yeah.
For the first day.
For the first day.
Because we hadn't done it live ourselves in this way.
Yeah.
And it worked
quite well.
Yeah, I know,
So,
but I think that like what I see is like very promising for the like
for the weeks to come.
Yeah, really like some are really strong. Like you can just print them out and hang them in the city, and then you get even a discussion. So that's
we also ask people to distribute them. So they get we get a pile of pamphlets, but we also ask them to leave them in the train or to drop them in their neighbor's post box or something. Doesn't matter as long as they are distributed.
Right, so that they can get the discussion again.
Somehow, That's a bit like
a paper trail of the process.
Yeah, it's nice that
get
it's
it
like
into the world.
Yeah, exactly. So it's you create this circle of conversation.
Yeah, in a way, that's what we hope to start with more or less.
And one of the fun thing was there were people here who weren't from the graphic industry or nothing, and they get in contact with these kinds of techniques.
Yeah,
and that's really nice and hopefully entertaining for them and making them wonder and thinking and getting to new results. Was really nice.
Yeah, but I noticed that because when I was preparing your this talk, then some of the participants they came down and they said, "Yeah, we made this. Have a look. What do you think?" And
that's
really
a bit how we hoped it would work.
So that was a really nice surprise also. So let's go to the 1st of October. Then you present Radio Wobbit.
Wobbit.
Oh man, this name is
Radio Wobbit.
It's like a frog.
It's Wobbit. It's the name is from a combination of Wobby, the magazine we make, and The Titan. It's a literary newspaper, really. So it's like a newspaper, and it also is from Tilburg. And it also appears 4 times a year. So and we wanted to do like radio talk show. So and then we combined the writers and from the Titan and our magazine. So.
But for this edition, we did that for a literary festival with them. But for this edition, we focus on the people who are in this project and the writers, the new Wobby that will be released that day.
So and how did you came up with this idea to make a radio program?
Well, Jeroen has done it a few times.
I always like it is also a bit like the do-it-yourself, like you are broadcasting.
Like now,
right now. So and that everybody can make like radio or television with the internet. And I also like the idea that you can the one part of the printing is the print itself, and the other part is what do you do with the print. You have to distribute it, or you have to broadcast it in a way, and that is what you also do with radio. So it's like your message being broadcasted. And I think in that way, the combination of those two things, that you also you have the magazine, but then you also have the magazine as a platform, or you can also make a radio show out of it with the same people, and then it becomes something else. As a lot of the artists or the illustrators, or they can also do a lot of different things. So some of them make music, or you know, that's and when you hear a writer talking, it's also different from. That's was mainly the idea.
But also because it's an event where people can see the guests and maybe talk with them afterwards, or so it's all also like a bit of a meeting. moment.
Yeah.
And Mary get together.
Yeah.
And we have a dance afterwards.
We can have a chit chat.
Chit-chat.
And Mats Wijn is joining us. He's I worked with him on Radio Bergijk radio program
On VPRO.
for VPRO.
Yeah.
And he almost makes radio like they are comics. So when you listen to his radio, it's like a hair play but it almost sounds like a comic, but then in sound. So there's some kind of overlap in that way. So yeah,
Wow, that's surprising.
he makes very nice, good things. And Hans Timmermans is joining us for the technique, so he's really good at that part. And then it's also about doing it yourself. Like why would you listen to all the other broadcasts brought to you by big networks, because they won't broadcast us, so we do it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was something that you mentioned for both projects, and it is 4 times a year. Like, why is this time important, or is it like just coincidence? Because this morning I talked with Ken Lowe, one of the artists, and he also talked about time and taking time for everything. And I was just wondering how this time period for you.
Every 3 months to make a magazine like this, it's really a lot of work, because we print it ourselves. So every 3 months is already a bit much, maybe sometimes. But if it were 3 or 2, I wouldn't call it a magazine. So 4 is, then you can call it magazine.
Okay. No, but so it's production technical.
Yeah, and to set a deadline. So we have to release 4 issues a year.
Right.
So then you know in advance we have to make it. So
And we want to compete with the seasons.
And it also has that's true. So, but it also has the chance that you, because it's quite much. But then again, you have it can because you produce, and then sometimes you also fail there. So the experiment is also important.
Yeah. So
it doesn't have to be like
space.
Yeah, and it's like, because you experiment with new writers, new artists, and you have to do a lot. And then there's also a tempo in making things, and then the experiment is an ongoing process. I think if you come out with one beautiful issue which is perfect, then I think.
Oh, we have a low battery. Yeah, but we thank you so much.
What a good assistant. My perfect intern. Hanna.
Sorry. Low battery. No. But I was also want to finish up, so that's okay, because we have low battery. No. Where can we follow you? Like your projects, people online, where can follow you?
We're on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and the account name is @Wobby.Club. So no Wobby, because you can find all kinds of things related to fitness, I guess, and I'm not sure why.
Rubber stuff.
So Wobby.Club, and if you use a hashtag, please use Wobby.Club also.
Okay. It's up there, huh?
Yeah.
Wobby.Club.
Wobby. More than a hobby.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.